Welcome to the All Things DER podcast, brought to you by AEIC. In this podcast, we dig in, define, and discuss where the new energy economy is heading with electric industry leaders and explore all the ways that distributed energy resources can modernize and improve our ever-evolving power grid. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to the All Things DER podcast, sponsored by AEIC, and I am your host, Dr. Elizabeth Cook, and I work for Duquesne Light. And today is a special honor and guest. We have Brian Guzek, who is the Vice President of Corporate Strategy here at Duquesne Light. So welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Liz.
Why don't you take a moment and kind of explain, your position and what you're doing here at Duquesne Light?
Absolutely. So as Liz said, I'm Brian Guzek. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Strategy. I'm responsible for the organization that really thinks about tomorrow. We set ourselves up to really boldly harness opportunities for tomorrow and a multitude of different things, from advanced grid systems to organizational change management, to the innovation center, to transportation electrification, data and analytics, and the list goes on, but really striving to drive the future. And within enterprise strategic planning, we have a large set of different roadmaps that we are driving to be successful in the future, one of which is grid modernization.
Yes. And so to you listeners, I think I've mentioned, ultimately, we've been leading the grid modernization roadmap within the Duquesne Light. And the basis of grid modernization is not only improving our core infrastructure and assessing the overall capacity and capabilities of what it is, but it's also preparing us for that grid of the future.
That's right. Which
really resonates with the term distributed energy resources. So here we are. Just from your perspective and where we are, where do you see the current changes happening and what's happening at the edge, and how's it impacting our distribution system?
Yeah, I think you summed it up well, because it is a balance of investing in today and balancing tomorrow. And, I think what we're seeing is that our customers are demanding more, and we're recognizing that the visibility in which we need at the edge of the grid is more and more. So, partnering with a lot of our supplier partners, partnering with team members in the industry and podcasts like this to see which technology we could really grab and learn and implement so that we can serve our customers for the future. I go back to a quote that I've heard before, where some would say it's maybe not as solid as one might think, but I always went back to, when you're thinking about customers, if you'd ask if Henry Ford would have asked his customers what they wanted when he was rolling out the Ford, they said they would want 100 more horses, right? And so it's helping our customers learn and be in there as that partner and getting that visibility at the edge of the grid. Because if we don't see, and I think you've talked about it before too, Liz, like if it's fuzzy at the edge of the grid, our ability to respond and adapt and plan our overall distribution network, it's not going to be what our customers need and what we need to be successful being there for our customers.
So just for our listeners, like here in Western Pennsylvania, which is the area that Duquesne Light serves, we're a 2-county utility. We're transmission and distribution wires only. What are some of the challenges or maybe opportunities we're seeing with these distributed energy resources? And to you listeners, remember, we're talking electric vehicle charging, solar, distributed generation general, and the capability of managing the load in a way that we've never had to do before.
Yeah, well, I think we're fortunate being here in Pittsburgh, particularly in the transmission system. And Liz and I have really partnered with LineVision to really expand our transmission capacity. So we've started that journey, not because we absolutely need to, but because we see this demand increasing in the future, and to start that full situational awareness from the transmission network all the way down through the distribution network. And so I think that, to me, is kind of the start of what we kind of need to implement.
And so, talking about innovation, because not only do you oversee the Advanced Grid Solutions Group, which is the group that I lead up, is also the Innovation Center or embodiment. Like, what is that perspective of what that innovation is and how you're bringing it and driving it through the organization?
Yeah, I think as many utilities struggle is kind of breaking outside of the 100-year-old history that we've had in that very traditional one-way flow, traditional regulatory model. It's really pushing the boundaries in a good way that look at things from a different lens, where maybe even 3-4 years ago, we wouldn't have the opportunity from a technology perspective to do that. And that's part of the challenges that we see, is that educating not all of our stakeholders, not just the legislators, the regulators, the customers, but our own employees and our own teammates, to show that, hey, this is not a high risk technology that maybe was thought it was a high risk 10 years ago. These are things that have been proven not just in our industry, but adjacent industries. And we need to learn from that. We need to say, like, look, this is something, yes, maybe new to us, but the world has been implementing in other technologies for decades.
Right. And so I think the one thing exciting about working at Duquesne Light is really that as we're pulsing the industry, and as we all know in the electric industry, the one cool thing about us is that we get to share, what we've been doing and the lessons learned, gained from it. And an area that I am passionate about, I don't know if it shows up in this podcast or not, is the power of the data. And so that's another group that really we've stood up under corporate strategy to drive through, is really embracing data and data analytics. And I just have to plug, when we say data analytics, remember that is taking historical data, whatever it is, and writing the algorithms and really the mathematical equations to identify patterns and historical responses to whatever you're studying. And so a big buzzword right now in the industry is artificial intelligence. And I just want to tee up really this, and then you can kind of explain what we're doing here at data analytics. But remember, artificial intelligence is just really taking that capability of powerful language of math, compounding it with real-time data that continuously can learn and enhance our overall insights. So here at Duquesne Light, we've definitely embraced data analytics and the power of it. And I just, what about that other group that you've stood up in corporate strategy?
Absolutely. And first of all, with artificial intelligence, there's companies out there that just put that at the end of their name and their stock price goes up 20%. So it's definitely a buzzword, similar buzz as we saw in, the .com boom. But I will say, for us, it's not just a buzzword. It's truly what we're driving the organization to become. And when we think about data and analytics, I always talk about accessibility, trust, and then your analytics, because we have to be able to get the data. And so a lot of the groups, advanced grid systems, is really focused on that edge of grid data, but it's all the data that we have throughout the organization. So accessing it, trusting it. So we have data governance, data quality. We use the data book of knowledge, all the things that we can reference to make sure that our data is trusted, so that when we run advanced analytics, we can be confident. We don't question the data. We don't say, really, is the data right? We kind of just go and run with it. And so once we get all that, we talk about turning data into insights and insights into action. And I think we're at that insights phase and slowly starting to drive into action with some of the things we've been working on, whether it's predictive analytics to help better serve our customers during storm events, predictive analytics so that we can invest for our customers in the future and start to see those tendencies and what our customers are really driving toward the future. So I think that piece of it is going to make us smarter. It's going to make us more efficient, but ultimately is going to allow us to serve our customers better.
Right. And I think being the leader of the grid modernization imperative and roadmap, there's always this question, what's in it for the customer? I think we here are doing a great job at really tying that storyline that pretty much anything that we do to enhance the current grid and then prepare the grid for the future is for the customer experience. But being engineers like we are, it's always kind of an oversight, but it's something that we continuously thread here. And I think it's also really creates that value and inspiration to get us going and run this path that I think all of us are on, which is enhancing the grid to prepare for the electrification of the edge. So I guess in summary, there's a lot going on, not only here at Duquesne Light, but also in industry wide. And what we've seen is the maturity level of where each group is and really what entity. A lot of it's driven by regulatory mandates or really an oversight of just kind of guiding the utilities in ways that have always been guided. What do you think sets us apart here at Duquesne Light as we kind of transition through really what they say, the fourth industrial revolution? So
I think our vision carries it through. A larger than light clean energy future for all. We talk about being larger than light. To your point, Liz, just keeping the lights on was always the mantra of the utility. That's still very, very important. We want to be larger than that. We want to give back to our communities. We want to serve our customers and allow our customers to be served in the way which they want to be served. And so you think about distributed energy resources, whether it's EV charging, whether it's PV on the roofs, whether it's a complete system where they have, battery walls and other things. We want to be that grid that's there to serve them, not just for today, but for the future. And I think that's really what sets us apart. I think focusing on our communities, our customers, delivering today, because if we don't deliver for our customers today, they're not going to want to take that journey with us. They're not going to want to electrify their homes. They're not going to want to take advantages of EVs. They're not going to want to harness the wonderful opportunities and potential of the grid. So I think we have a very strong, balanced approach. And I think we have an innovative mindset. I really do. I think we're small but mighty, talk about 2 counties, but we're doing things that can set ourselves apart and help others learn and set that example so that our peer utilities can say, hey, Pittsburgh, they've been part of each industrial revolution and they're leading this one today.
And so full circle, so, all things DER, and I think it's just becoming such a bigger topic because it's not just the technology that connects to the edge of the grid, it's really all of the processes and really the business units that it will impact. So I think a lot of us kind of get siloed and focused into our particular business units, such as the interconnection team, the system planning team, the asset management team, and really the customer conversation is really an aftermath, or maybe it's like not happening with great synergies. So I think that the power of understanding all of what DER can do to our grid really enables utilities to set themselves up for this transition. So I guess for our listeners, thinking back, stepping back, as you're coming into this industry, several years ago, what are some guiding principles that you could maybe provide our listeners of how to get started in their own utility?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, get a vision that you can drive towards. I think having a vision, having a mission is incredibly important, and allowing your team, holistic team, to understand the priorities. Because as a utility, a lot of times you're really getting lights back on, or you're looking at overload capacities. You're not taking that next step to balance the future. And I think it's important carving out either a small group or carving out a focused area to really put the future as a priority. I think that's incredibly important. And so as leaders and team members across all utilities, I would say, have a vision that you can get everyone around, but also have a vision that impacts your customers. I think that's, you said it before, having your customer at the forefront. If you're focused on the customer, everything else will start to fall into place, and having that rigor, that drive around the vision, because perseverance among everything else is going to set you apart, because it's not going to be easy. But if you know something's ultimately right, it'll be right.
Great advice. So being that we're both born and raised in Pittsburgh through and through, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are the 3 things that you love about being a Pittsburgher?
Wow. So my kids are actually 4th generation Pittsburgh, and I've traveled all over the world. I've actually lived overseas for a time period. First and foremost thing about Pittsburgh is the people. You can walk down the street, ask someone for directions, and they'll be more than happy to tell you where the old oak tree fell over 2 years ago that you have no idea where it is, but absolutely willing to be there. So the people are great. I would say the sense of community. When Pittsburgh needs Pittsburgh, we step up. And so when the coal mine shut down in the 80s, we revolutionized ourselves to be meds, eds, and bots. And I firmly believe as those meds, eds, and bots take off, we can be that 4th industrial revolution here in Pittsburgh and be the energy leader. So I would say first is people, next is community, and I would say the last piece is perseverance. I think Pittsburgh embodies that culture that continues to drive and move ahead, even when things seem uphill all the time.
Great response. I was going to say like the Permania sandwich, the French
the
dress,
sports teams, the
Pittsburgh
Steelers,
Steelers,
yeah,
and
University of Pittsburgh.
and the 3 rivers.
3 rivers are amazing.
But I liked your response much better. Okay, with that, thank you for your time. I incredibly enjoy my journey here at Duquesne Light, and with that is you. So with that, we're signing off, and until next time.
That's a wrap for this week's episode of All Things DER. Thanks for tuning in. We hope today's conversation got you thinking about new and creative ways to improve our power grid. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be the first to hear new episodes. This podcast is brought to you by AEIC, the place where operations leaders come together to share knowledge and provide guidance to the electric utility industry. We'll be back with a new episode soon. Until then, keep powering on.